I'm going to lose my house if nobody helps me, I cried, my voice breaking as I looked around the crowded Christmas dinner table. The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon filled my parents' dining room in Phoenix, Arizona, but all I could focus on were the uncomfortable glances being exchanged between my relatives. Please, I'm begging you. I need $20,000 by January 15th, or the bank will foreclose. My name is Camilla Brooks, and I'm 29 years old. What nobody at this table knew was that 3 months earlier, I had won $50 million in the Powerball lottery. The winning ticket was hidden safely in my bedroom drawer, along with the bank statements showing my new reality. But tonight, I was putting on the performance of my lifetime. Camilla, honey, you know money's tight for everyone right now, my wealthy Uncle Richard said, cutting into his prime rib. He owned 3 successful auto dealerships across Phoenix and had just returned from a 2-week vacation in Europe. Maybe you should have thought about this before buying that house. I watched as he avoided eye contact, suddenly very interested in his dinner plate. Aunt Patricia, his wife, nodded in agreement while adjusting her new diamond bracelet. That's right, Patricia chimed in, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Helping you would just enable bad behavior. Sometimes people need to learn from their mistakes. I felt a surge of anger, but forced myself to keep playing the desperate relative. This was exactly why I had devised this test 3 weeks ago. After winning the lottery, I had wanted to know who in my family would actually care about my well-being when I needed them most. The results were already revealing more than I had expected. My cousin Tyler, who worked in tech and made 6 figures, suddenly found his phone fascinating. Sorry, Camilla, but I've got my own expenses. You understand. Around the table, I watched as family member after family member found creative ways to avoid offering help. These were people who had attended my college graduation, celebrated my birthday parties, and claimed to love me. Yet when faced with what they believed was a genuine crisis, their true colors were showing. The only person who hadn't spoken was my cousin Elena. She sat quietly in the corner, still wearing her work uniform from her second job at the diner. Elena was a single mother working 2 minimum-wage jobs to support her 8-year-old daughter, Maya. She lived paycheck to paycheck in a small apartment across town, barely scraping by each month. As the conversation moved on to other topics, I caught Elena's eye. She gave me a small, sad smile that said more than any words could. Something told me that if anyone at this table would surprise me, it would be her. Later that evening, as relatives filtered out of my parents' house with full bellies and clear consciences, I sat on the front porch, thinking about the responses I had received. The December air was crisp, and Christmas lights twinkled throughout the neighborhood. My phone buzzed with a text message. Camilla, it's Elena. Can we talk tomorrow? I have an idea that might help. I stared at the message, genuinely surprised. Elena, who struggled to pay her own rent, wanted to help me when my wealthy relatives had all declined. I texted back immediately. Of course, coffee at 10 a.m. at Sunshine Cafe? Perfect. Don't give up hope. The next morning I arrived at the small cafe early, my mind racing with curiosity. Elena walked in exactly at 10, looking tired but determined. She ordered just black coffee, which I knew meant money was tighter than usual. Camilla, I've been thinking about your situation all night, she began, her voice soft but serious. I know I don't have much, but I want to help you keep your house. I felt my throat tighten with unexpected emotion. Elena, you don't need to. Yes, I do, she interrupted gently. You're family, and family takes care of each other. I have $12,000 saved up. It's Maya's college fund, but she's only 8. I can rebuild it. I stared at her in shock. Elena was offering her daughter's entire college fund to help me. This was money she had scraped together working double shifts, skipping meals, and buying secondhand clothes for herself and Maya. I also talked to my manager at the diner, she continued. She said I can pick up extra shifts through New Year's. Between tips and overtime, I might be able to scrape together another couple thousand. My heart was breaking and swelling simultaneously. Here was someone who could barely afford groceries, offering everything she had to help me. Meanwhile, Uncle Richard, who had just bought a new luxury car, couldn't spare a penny. "Elena, I can't let you sacrifice Maya's future for me," I said, though I was deeply moved by her offer. "Maya's future includes having a cousin who doesn't lose her home," Elena replied firmly. "We'll figure out the college fund later. Right now, you need help, and I'm going to give it to you." Over the next hour, Elena outlined her plan to help me raise money. She had already started selling some of her personal belongings and was planning to work every available shift at both her jobs. She had even researched local assistance programs that might be able to help. As I listened to her detailed plan to save my fictional financial crisis, I realized I had found something more valuable than $50 million. I had found the one person in my family whose love was unconditional and genuine. That night, I began planning how to reveal the truth and reward Elena's incredible generosity, while ensuring my selfish relatives understood exactly what they had lost. Over the next 2 weeks, Elena threw herself into helping me with a determination that both amazed and humbled me. She picked up every extra shift available at both the diner and the grocery store where she worked part-time. I watched her leave for work at 5 a.m. and return home after 11 p.m., exhausted but refusing to give up. "How's Maya handling you being gone so much?" I asked during one of our coffee meetings. "She understands," Elena said, though I could see the guilt in her eyes. I explained that family helps family, and sometimes that means sacrifices. "She's proud that we're helping you." The depth of Elena's commitment became even clearer when she showed up at my apartment with a box of items she planned to sell. "I found a buyer for my grandmother's ring," she said, pulling out a beautiful vintage piece. "It's worth about $1,500. Combined with what I've saved from extra shifts and the money from my savings account, I'll have almost $10,000 for you by next week." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. This ring was Elena's most precious possession, a family heirloom passed down through 3 generations. She was willing to sell it to help me keep a house I wasn't actually going to lose. Meanwhile, the silence from my wealthy relatives was deafening. Uncle Richard had posted photos on social media from the expensive steakhouse dinner. Aunt Patricia shared pictures of her latest shopping spree. Cousin Tyler posted about his weekend ski trip to Colorado. Not one of them had reached out to check on my supposed financial crisis or offer any assistance. My parents, who lived comfortably on my father's retirement from his accounting firm, had offered sympathy, but no financial help. "We're living on a fixed income now," my mother had explained, though I knew they had substantial savings. The contrast was stark and heartbreaking. Elena, who had to choose between buying groceries and paying for gas, was moving heaven and earth to help me. My wealthy relatives, who could have easily spared $20,000 without impacting their lifestyles, had dismissed my crisis without a second thought. The breaking point came when Elena called me on New Year's Eve, exhausted from working a double shift. "Camilla, I have good news," she said, her voice hoarse with fatigue. "I managed to get the money together. $14,000. I know it's not the full $20,000 you need, but it's a start. We can figure out the rest." As I hung up the phone, I realized it was time to end this charade. Elena had proven beyond any doubt that she possessed the kind of character money couldn't buy. Tomorrow, I would call a family meeting and reveal the truth. It was time for everyone to learn who had passed the test and who had failed spectacularly. The lottery ticket in my drawer wasn't just worth $50 million anymore. It had become the key to revealing the true value of family loyalty and unconditional love. On January 2nd, I sent a group text to all the relatives who had been at Christmas dinner, plus a few others I wanted to include. "Family meeting at my parents' house tomorrow at 2 p.m. I have important news about my financial situation. Please be there." The responses came quickly. Uncle Richard replied that he'd try to make it if his golf game ended early. Aunt Patricia said she hoped I had figured things out on my own. Cousin Tyler sent back a thumbs-up emoji. My parents confirmed they'd be there, and Elena immediately called. "Did you find a solution?" she asked, hope evident in her tired voice. "You could say that," I replied carefully. "Just make sure you're there tomorrow. And Elena, thank you for everything you've done. It means more than you'll ever know." That evening, I sat in my bedroom staring at the lottery ticket that had started this entire journey. In 3 months, I had gone from ecstatic winner to someone who understood the true nature of the people around me. The money had always been life-changing, but the knowledge I had gained was perhaps even more valuable. I carefully placed the ticket in an envelope, along with a cashier's check I had prepared weeks earlier. Tomorrow would reveal everything. The next afternoon, my parents' living room filled with family members, though some arrivals were more reluctant than others. Uncle Richard showed up 20 minutes late, complaining about traffic. Aunt Patricia brought a store-bought dessert and immediately began gossiping with my mother about a mutual friend's divorce. Elena arrived precisely on time, carrying a worn envelope. She had dressed in her nicest clothes, a simple black dress she reserved for special occasions. Maya wasn't with her. Elena had arranged for a neighbor to watch her daughter. "Camilla, before you start," Elena said quietly, approaching me with the envelope. "I wanted to give you this. It's not the full amount you need, but it's everything I could manage." I took the envelope, feeling its weight. Inside was $14,000 in cash and money orders. Elena's entire savings, the money from selling her grandmother's ring, and every penny she had earned working double shifts for 2 weeks. "Elena, you've already done more than enough," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Family takes care of family," she replied simply, echoing what she had told me at the cafe. "We'll figure out the rest together." As the room settled and conversations died down, I stood at the front of the living room. 15 family members looked at me with varying degrees of interest and impatience. Some checked their phones. Uncle Richard glanced at his expensive watch. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my heart pounding. "As you know, I've been facing a serious financial crisis. I told you at Christmas that I needed $20,000 to save my house from foreclosure." Aunt Patricia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Camilla, if you're going to ask again—" "I'm not asking for anything anymore," I interrupted, "because I've learned everything I needed to know about each of you." A confused murmur rippled through the room. My cousin Tyler looked up from his phone for the first time. "I have an announcement to make about my financial situation," I continued, reaching into my purse. "But first, I want to thank Elena for her incredible generosity and sacrifice over the past 2 weeks." Elena looked puzzled, clearly wondering where this was heading. Elena offered me her daughter's college fund. She worked double shifts for 2 weeks straight, barely sleeping. She sold her grandmother's ring, a priceless family heirloom. She did all of this despite struggling to pay her own bills, despite raising Maya alone on minimum wage. I paused, looking around the room at faces that were beginning to show signs of unease. "And the rest of you? You made excuses. You found reasons why helping family wasn't your responsibility. Some of you could have written a check for $20,000 without even noticing the missing money." The room was dead silent now. "I want to share something with all of you," I continued, pulling the lottery ticket from the envelope. 3 months ago, I won $50 million in the Powerball lottery. The silence that followed was deafening. Then chaos erupted. "What?" Uncle Richard jumped to his feet, his face turning red. "You've had $50 million this whole time?" "That's impossible," Aunt Patricia sputtered. "You were crying about losing your house." "Because I was testing you," I said calmly, though my heart was racing. I wanted to know who in this family would actually care about my well-being when I needed help. I wanted to see who would sacrifice for me the way I had always believed family should. Cousin Tyler's mouth hung open. "You lied to us?" You made us feel guilty for not giving you money you didn't even need? I didn't make you feel anything, I replied firmly. Your response to what you believed was a genuine crisis revealed your true character. You chose not to help someone you claimed to love when you thought they desperately needed it. Elena sat frozen, staring at me with wide eyes. Camilla, I don't understand. If you have $50 million, why did you let me? Because you passed the test, I said, turning to face her directly. Elena, you were the only person in this room who offered genuine help. You gave everything you had, even though you have less than anyone else here. I reached into the envelope and pulled out the cashier's check I had prepared. This is for you, Elena. $10 million. The paper fluttered slightly in my shaking hand as I held it out to her. Elena's face went completely white. 10 million? She whispered, unable to take the check. You offered everything to help family, I said, pressing the check into her hands. This is my way of showing what real family loyalty means. The room exploded into shouting. Uncle Richard was on his feet, pointing at me accusingly. This is insane. You can't just give away $10 million because she fell for your manipulation. It wasn't manipulation, I shot back. It was a character test, and she's the only one who passed. Aunt Patricia rushed forward, her face flushed with anger and desperation. Camilla, honey, you have to understand. We didn't know you actually had money. If you had known I could pay you back, you would have helped? I interrupted. That's exactly the problem. You only help when there's something in it for you. Elena was staring at the check in her hands, tears streaming down her face. Camilla, I can't accept this. I didn't help you for money. I helped because I love you. And that's exactly why you deserve it, I replied. Maya will never have to worry about college costs. You'll never have to work 2 jobs again. You can pursue that nursing degree you've always dreamed about. The rest of the family was in various states of shock and outrage. Uncle Richard began pacing, muttering about lawyers and mental competency. Aunt Patricia was crying, begging me to reconsider. Tyler kept shaking his head, saying, "This can't be real," over and over. My parents sat quietly, absorbing what had just happened. My mother finally spoke. Camilla, this seems rather extreme. These are family members who love you. Are they? I asked. Because when I needed them most, they abandoned me. Elena was willing to sacrifice her daughter's future for mine. That's love. What the rest of you showed was selfishness disguised as tough love. Uncle Richard's pacing grew more agitated as the reality of the situation sank in. You can't be serious about this, he said, his voice rising. I'm your uncle. I helped raise you. One mistake doesn't erase years of family history. One mistake? I turned to face him directly. You told me I made my bed and should lie in it. You said helping me would enable bad behavior. You sat at that Christmas table, fresh from a European vacation, and told your supposedly struggling niece that money was tight. I didn't know you were actually in trouble, he protested. People ask for money all the time. You have to be careful about these things. But I wasn't just people, I replied coldly. I was your niece, crying and begging for help to keep my home. The fact that you could dismiss that so easily tells me everything I need to know about your character. Aunt Patricia tried a different approach, suddenly switching to a sweet, pleading tone. Camilla, sweetheart, you know I've always loved you like my own daughter. I was just trying to teach you responsibility. If you need help, of course I'll write you a check right now. The shameless desperation in her voice was almost shocking. This was the same woman who had sat smugly at Christmas dinner, lecturing me about enabling bad behavior while showing off her new jewelry. Too late, I said simply. You had your chance to show you cared. Instead, you chose to judge and condemn. Elena finally found her voice, though she was still trembling. Camilla, this is too much. I don't need $10 million. I just need to know that Maya will be okay and that we can pay our bills. You're getting both, I said firmly. Plus the freedom to stop working yourself to death, and the ability to help other people the way you helped me. Imagine what you could do with this money. Not just for yourself, but for others who need help. The transformation in Elena's expression was beautiful to watch. The exhaustion and worry that had been constant companions for years began to fade, replaced by hope and possibility. I could go back to school, she whispered. I could become a nurse like I always wanted. Maya could have everything she needs. Exactly, I said, smiling for the first time since the meeting began. Cousin Tyler finally snapped out of his shock. This is completely unfair. Just because we didn't fall for your sob story doesn't mean we don't care about you. Didn't fall for it? I repeated incredulously. You believed a family member was about to lose their home, and your response was to ignore them. How is that caring? The arguments continued for another 20 minutes, with various family members trying different tactics to convince me to share the wealth more broadly. Some apologized profusely. Others grew angry and accusatory. A few tried to guilt me about splitting up the family. Through it all, Elena sat quietly, occasionally staring at the check in her hands as if it might disappear. Finally, she looked up at me. Are you sure about this? She asked softly. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied. You showed me what real love looks like. You sacrificed for someone you thought was in trouble, expecting nothing in return. That's worth more than all the money in the world. As the family meeting dissolved into chaos and accusations, I felt a deep sense of peace. The test was complete, the results were clear, and justice had been served. Elena's shocked gratitude was worth every penny of the $10 million, and the outrage of my selfish relatives only confirmed that I had made the right choice. Within hours of the family meeting, word of Elena's windfall began spreading through our extended family and community. Elena, still in shock, had called her mother to share the news, and from there it spread like wildfire. By evening, my phone was buzzing constantly with calls and texts from relatives who hadn't even been at the meeting. The immediate aftermath was swift and merciless. Uncle Richard's wife, Patricia, posted a bitter rant on social media about family members who manipulate and divide, before quickly deleting it when people began asking questions. But screenshots had already been taken and shared. Elena's transformation was immediate and profound. She quit both her exhausting jobs that very week, giving proper notice but clearly relieved to finally escape the cycle of endless work and financial stress. Her first purchase wasn't anything extravagant. It was a reliable car to replace the aging vehicle that had left her stranded multiple times. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all be a dream, Elena told me when we met for coffee a few days later. She looked different. The constant worry lines around her eyes had softened, and she carried herself with a confidence I had never seen before. It's real, I assured her. You earned every penny of it. The contrast between Elena's quiet gratitude and my other relatives' increasingly desperate attempts to contact me was stark. Uncle Richard left multiple voicemails, his tone shifting from anger to pleading as the days passed. Aunt Patricia sent a lengthy email detailing all the ways she had always been there for me, conveniently forgetting her harsh words at Christmas dinner. But the most telling response came from Cousin Tyler, who showed up unannounced at my apartment 3 days after the meeting. His usual cocky demeanor was replaced by barely contained panic. Camilla, we need to talk, he said, pushing past me into my living room. This whole lottery thing has gotten out of hand. People are talking, and it's making the whole family look bad. I almost laughed at his audacity. The family is making itself look bad. I just revealed what was already there. The long-term consequences of my revelation began unfolding over the following weeks, with a precision that even I hadn't anticipated. The story of Elena's generosity and the family's callousness spread throughout our tight-knit Phoenix community, where everyone seemed to know everyone else. Uncle Richard's auto dealerships began feeling the impact first. Customers who heard the story started taking their business elsewhere, uncomfortable with patronizing someone who would abandon family in crisis. His longtime partner, Mr. Patterson, quietly ended their business relationship after his own daughter confronted him about associating with someone so heartless. "People don't want to do business with someone they can't trust to do right by their own family," Patterson explained to mutual friends, and the sentiment echoed throughout their professional circles. Aunt Patricia faced social ostracism that was perhaps even more devastating. Her church congregation, where she had served on the charity committee for years, quietly asked her to step down after members questioned how someone could preach about helping the needy while refusing to help her own struggling niece. Their country club friends began excluding them from social gatherings. The story had spread through their social circle like wildfire, and the consensus was clear. People who would abandon family in crisis couldn't be trusted in friendship either. Meanwhile, Elena's life was transforming in beautiful ways. She enrolled in nursing school at Arizona State University, something she had dreamed about for years but never thought possible. Maya, thriving with the stability and security her mother's windfall had provided, was enrolled in an excellent private school where she could pursue her love of art and music. Elena used her newfound financial freedom not just for herself and Maya, but to help others. She quietly paid off medical bills for struggling families at Maya's former school and established a scholarship fund for single mothers pursuing healthcare careers. The woman who had sacrificed everything to help me was now positioned to help countless others, while those who had turned away in my supposed time of need watched their own lives crumble under the weight of their exposed character. As I watched Elena flourish and my selfish relatives face the consequences of their actions, I felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with justice. Elena's kindness had been rewarded, and the truth about everyone's character was now clear for all to see. The months that followed brought a reckoning that reached far beyond what I had initially imagined. Uncle Richard's business empire, built on community relationships and trust, crumbled as customers and partners distanced themselves from someone they now viewed as fundamentally selfish. His marriage to Patricia grew strained under the financial pressure and social isolation, with Patricia blaming him for their downfall, while conveniently forgetting her own role in rejecting my pleas for help. Cousin Tyler found his social media marketing business suffering, as clients questioned whether they wanted to associate with someone whose character had been so publicly exposed. And other family members faced similar social and professional consequences, as word of their callousness spread throughout Phoenix's interconnected communities. As I watched Elena graduate from nursing school with honors 2 years later, her daughter Maya beaming with pride in the audience, I realized that my $50 million test had revealed something more valuable than money could ever buy: the difference between genuine love and conditional affection, and the peace that comes from knowing exactly who deserves a place in your heart.